You're listening to CreepGeeks Podcast. So it begins again. Welcome back to CreepGeeks Podcast. This is Season 6, Episode 239.
Ukraine UFO, new secret technology, ukrainestamp, and gas prices?
Yeah. So here we are. Welcome back to CreepGeeks Podcast. If this is your very first time listening, we're glad to have you here. And if you're a repeat offender, welcome back.
Yeah.
All right. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about. And normally we don't talk too much about things that are going on in the news because every time we do, it seems like our podcast takes a hit and we go away for a while.
Yeah. Like an unplanned vacation that nobody wants.
Yeah. So we're kind of hoping that doesn't happen this time, but we'll see. We're going to roll the dice and play the odds and just think that maybe everything is just crazy enough that we might slip on by. Yeah.
Okay.
That's why we don't use the C word.
You mean the tinfoil word?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, we're going to roll into the podcast. But before we do, there's a couple different ways you can get a hold of us or interact with us. And one of them is a telephone number.
That phone number is going to be 575-208-4025.
Yeah. And also we have a website, creepgeeks.com, where you can basically go there and see stuff about the podcast, including our latest episodes and all the show notes. It'll take you back to their original sources. So, you know. And also there's a contact spot on there where you can click it and you can basically fill out some information if you'd like to share with us a story or maybe something that's happened to you or something you want us to talk about. And we may or may not, utilize it.
Yeah.
It just kind of depends on what it is. And we also have a pretty active Facebook page. So don't be scared to go there.
Yes, that Facebook page, pretty easy to find. It's going to be CreepGeeks Podcast. We also have a Facebook group, CreepGeeks Facebook group.
Yeah. Like my laser beam?
No.
It's my retro laser.
Okay.
Okay. So anyway, before we move into the podcast, there's a couple things we'd like to tell you. We'd like to tell you what we're going to have for dinner after our podcast because people seem to think that's interesting.
Yeah.
And so if you'd like to do that, go ahead.
We are having homemade chicken salad.
Salad.
On peasant bread.
Yes.
Yes.
Because we're just trying to keep it real here at CreepGeeks Podcast. Gas prices are high.
Actually, I just really did not feel like going anywhere today. So I was like,
keep the illusion alive, woman.
I'm not going to the store and buying bread. I'll just make bread.
That's right.
Yeah.
Just get in the kitchen and make it.
Yeah.
Like old people do.
Whereas a loaf of bread plus gas is probably what, $8?
It's at least a Happy Meal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if we charge me minimum wage.
It's at least McDoubles.
If we charge me minimum wage to make bread, it's, wow. It's more expensive.
Yeah. It's more expensive for sure. All right. So, moving into the podcast a little bit. So along with what we're going to have for dinner, we also have a Fortean or Fortean word of the day.
Yeah. And I'm surprised you picked this one. But the Fortean word for the day is propaganda.
Yes. Propaganda.
Now, according to Wikipedia, propaganda is communication that is primarily used to influence an audience and further an agenda, which may not be objective and may be selectively presenting facts to encourage a particular synthesis or perception, or using loaded language to produce an emotional rather than a rational response to the information that's being presented.
Yes.
Propaganda can be found in news and journalism, government, advertising, entertainment, education, and activism, and is often associated with material which is prepared by governments as part of war efforts, political campaigns, health campaigns, revolutionaries, big businesses, ultra-religious organizations, the media, and certain individuals such as soapboxers.
Yes. I like that. Soapboxers.
Yeah.
That's an Alex Jones kind of a thing, I think they put in there.
Yeah.
Who knows? But yes. The thing about propaganda is it goes both ways. You can believe it to be false, and somebody on the other side can believe it to be true. Mm-hmm. It's really up to you to decide, because propaganda and how it's used and the truth that you can take away from whatever is out there is really, up to you.
Well, propaganda is slighted towards a specific agenda. And the problem is there's news. Well, when it comes to journalism, there's news, there's editorial, and then there's propaganda. And then there's flat out advertising.
Could not disagree with you more.
Okay.
And that's the way it used to be back in the day.
True.
But now that since there is basically has been legislation passed that the news doesn't have to be factual, seriously, or accurate, that doesn't apply anymore. You can get propaganda from anywhere.
Well, hopefully the 3 college students that might have tuned into this podcast respect the definitions or categories I provided,
Yeah, it used to be that you had to, basically maintain that there was some modicum of truth in what you said.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, but I think now that, they're trying to make and sort of look at propaganda as, if it's really obvious propaganda, there you go. That's all there is. But there's levels to it. And I'm not saying whatever side you think I'm on or whatever side you think you're on is right, and whatever somebody else is saying that maybe counter to that is propaganda. I'm just saying that propaganda is propaganda. Mm-hmm. And, and I'm not talking about propaganda as it relates to I don't know. It's just one of those things where I think that when people try to paint themselves or whatever it is, their cause, one way, and put that out there without being entirely truthful and whatever, and this goes just as a generalization, that's a form of propaganda.
True.
So,
I
just want the truth, because see, then you have to do all this work, right? You got to look at one side, then look at the other, and then you got to get on a computer and do your own research.
Which is even worse these days, because have you seen the commercials aimed at older generations about real, unbiased news without propaganda? And it instructs the older generations or older individuals in our community to download these apps. And when you download this supposed or alleged news app, you select things you like.
Well, you know what, though?
Select where you live.
The younger generation and crowd automatically do that.
Yeah.
So I think it's good that the older people are being said, hey, if you want to get an opinion on something, then here's how you do it. Because I think that's kind of a fair way to do it. Because I think that so far there's this thing going on where you've got youngsters and OK Boomer and all this other stupid garbage, when at the end of the day, and everybody listen real close here, everyone is wrong.
True.
And everyone is right to a certain degree. But I think if you bring up a point and it goes straight to, violence and belittling people and doing all that stuff, then you've already lost the argument, because there is a large number of people who are smart enough to do some research. Mm-hmm. Now, we're in the paranormal community, and there is a large number of people who don't do any research whatsoever.
Or they take the research that's provided at face value, and they deem what is presented in front of them as sufficient evidence.
Yeah. So. Now, me, on the other hand, we do our research. We know a lot more about stuff than we ever even talk about or even put out. And a lot of it is because we just don't want to be inconvenienced by having to explain something to death by only having somebody go, well, that's not what I see. It's like, well, there you go, man. You've got the Goodyear blimp floating over you. You're in a boat fishing in the lake, and it's floating right there. And the company said, yes, that's the Goodyear blimp. And you're like, well, that's not what I seen. Okay, then, dude. You go, right? Mm-hmm. Same thing with in New Mexico with the Starlink satellites. A guy was in his backyard seeing a string of Starlink satellites going in the sky, and people were like, that's Starlink. He's like, well, that's not what I seen. What did you see, dude? 1,000 other people seen Starlink satellites too, but you seen something different?
Yeah.
Or you just don't want to admit it?
But that also makes me think, was it the squeaky wheel gets the oil? So if something is presented loud enough and with enough oomph behind it,
must be true.
Is that what's remembered in history?
Well, sure.
As news.
Yeah.
You know, like, ooh, well, this one guy kept talking about a UFO over a lake in Salem, North Carolina.
Well, it used to be that you had to substantiate what you said.
Yeah.
And now you don't have to. So I think that's a big part of the problem why we're in.
So
and where we are. And, what we have going on now is, generations are so quick to make a decision and stick to it and move on. They're done with it.
Yeah.
But even if you go back and say, well, hey, look, 3 years later, this is actually what had happened. I don't care. They've moved on. It's no longer an issue. It's no longer. And I think that there's a lot of things that occur that since people are so quick in their attention spans that they don't even worry about it. I think this is a great time for, top secret, UFO military style technology to be out because, yes, sure, there's 1,000 cameras out there and millions of cell phones with cameras built into them, but nobody cares. They take a picture, put it up. It gets, 3 minutes of attention, people have moved on. And then eventually there's enough of these things that are showed up that people just think it's commonplace. Well, yeah, they've always been here. Or, yeah, that's just how it is. And it's not even a big deal. It's not even a blip on the radar anymore. And that's kind of scary. I think if news and just everything sort of slowed down and gave it a chance to sort of sink in, things would be different.
But now news is essentially marketing, and it's reliant on many more expensive avenues to get itself out. So news has to constantly be news. It has to be new and breaking.
Yeah.
And
look at the Weather Channel.
Yeah.
We're going to activate our extreme mobile weather team. And the whole time when there's nothing going on, like it's just rain, they're like, I'm standing in this puddle. And if it rained for 24 hours straight at the current rate of rain that we have right now, it would be underwater.
But in order to send that extreme, awesome radar of destruction app and technology, plus send that particular meteorologist out on location costs money.
Well, yeah.
So, they have to generate that viewership and generate that new interest over and over again.
Yeah.
To support
the biggest fear most of these companies have is that you'll just do like they said back in the 60s. What is it? Tune in, turn off, drop out, or whatever that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just don't care anymore. And, one of the things that we kind of talked about or sort of alluded to or has been alluded to is, the juggernaut that is the Russian country. I was going to say the Soviet Union, but I'd be dating myself. Because, right? And the idea that they have this huge technological advantage over everything that's in the current location where they're having a conflict because they don't want to say the word and get in trouble, which is silly. But that hasn't really shown up yet. Yeah, you would think since this conflict did not start out, I think, the way that the Russians wanted, that they would have started busting out with some super high-tech stuff that they've been alluding to, or hypersonic, projectile weapons and, all this stuff that did, and missiles and all this crazy stuff, like, look what we got, trying to show, how advantaged they are when it comes to technologically being ready. And it hasn't shown up. And you got like farmers towing away, armored vehicles with tractors. And, having the simple things not being supplied like gasoline and food and all that. So this whole thing is kind of weird to begin with. And it doesn't need to happen and it shouldn't happen. But it just seems to be a little sketchy, right? So the idea of, if they're so technologically advanced, where are these weapons? It really hasn't shown itself.
As you were saying that, the first thing I thought of was like YouTube clickbait channels, how they hype something up for weeks and weeks, and then when they roll it out, they drag that out as long as possible.
Yeah.
Stay tuned to see the full reveal next.
Yeah. Or if you're like TikTok
click like
or
and
whatever,
subscribe.
Click for part 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Russia is just one giant TikTok.
No, I'll be honest. I hope that it never gets, any worse than it is now. I mean, it's terrible, but it's not as terrible as it could be.
Yeah.
I mean, there are weapons out there to erase cities.
Yeah.
And it hasn't happened yet. And, so I'm kind of hoping this is just a skirmish, right? But I was fully expecting to see some space age, sort of high-tech UFO-esque type technology show up.
Yeah.
Where people are like, whoa, what was that? And it doesn't seem to be happening, You've got alleged soldiers giving middle fingers to warships and stuff, right? And, and some of that goes into the propaganda thing where it's a story that's put out there. And we talked about the ghost of Kiev.
Yeah.
Last podcast, where that creates a legend, a local, sort of folklore hero becomes a folk hero, which is disparaging to one side but encouraging to the other, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And we just really haven't seen it. And then, like on, I think it's March 5th, there was this thing that started making the rounds on the internets about, possible unidentified or unidentifiable object, UFO, taking out Russian tanks.
That's kind of cool, if it's true.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's not cool if you're in the tank, but I'm just, it's kind of a neat thing. It's like, whoa! But is it real, or is it like the ghost of Kiev, where it may be real, may not be real? It's hard to prove or disprove. It turns into one of those things. Is it just propaganda from one side, or what is it exactly? You can't really tell because nobody's going to really know. But we did kind of put it in here, and there's a link where a couple of news outlets have basically put out there saying that, hey, UFO attacked Russian forces and set tanks ablaze.
Okay.
Right. And this is supposed to be from the UK news director. It doesn't even really say. It just says former Israeli space security chief had once claimed that alien existence is real, as a sort of an article for you to read before you get into the story of how the UFO attacked Russian tanks.
Yeah.
So they're doing a little primer there, right? Yeah. And the article goes, as Russia continues its basically attack spree in Ukraine, the Ukraine director, Konstantin Levchenko, I really don't know how to pronounce any of this, has claimed a UFO which appeared from nowhere unleashed an attack on Russian tanks.
Huh.
And that basically the Ukrainians prayed and the UFO appeared.
Yeah. Lidovenko made these claims while talking on the channel's The Global Lane program. According to Lidovenko, I'm trying on that name, one young man called his father over the phone as Russian troops neared him with deadly weapons. The father apparently prayed to God to protect people belonging to his church, and the helping hand came from the outside world.
Yeah.
According to Lidovenko, a UFO appeared from nowhere, and it launched its lightning attack on Russian forces, the Daily Star reports. So...
Yeah, see, and I've heard this reported a couple of different ways. That's why we didn't really talk about it. Some reports originally came out and said it was a giant beam that came down like the hand of God and blew it up, right? And so when I read that, I'm like, oh, is this a directed energy weapon type thing coming from space?
We talked about like literally the other
We've talked
week.
about this for a couple of years,
yeah.
And then, or is it something else, or is it like maybe a possibly UFO inspired design craft or whatever? Because if you believe going all the way back, alternative propulsions and things like that, it could be a craft like that, and they're going to test it out and kind of, see how it works in war. Yeah. Because, after 45, there were some conflicts, but there weren't really, maybe Korea and that kind of thing, but there really wasn't too many sort of ways to test this sort of technology, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. And so the alien debate rolls on, but it doesn't really give a whole lot of information other than, hey, we prayed and there was a UFO appeared from nowhere and launched a lightning attack. And I don't think they meant lightning attack as in lightning fast, but like lightning as in it looked like lightning blowing tanks up.
Which again would be directed energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after doing a little bit more digging around, there's other articles and stuff, and all this is sort of surface level, and we have links to everything we talk about in the show notes. Sort of came up with a couple different things, right?
Yeah.
And one of them is this article that basically said that the Ukraine's new basically military technology against Russia, and this is on Yahoo News of all places, is the Turkish drone.
Oh.
And, it's a, TB2 drone that's designed to kind of go out there and do some stuff, right?
Yeah.
And, there's supposed to be a video on this. It says in a video that went viral on Twitter on Sunday night, a massive explosion rips through what appears to be a Russian convoy, scoring a direct hit from a surface-to-air missile system. And basically the black and white footage kind of shows the Ukrainian armed forces running around doing all that stuff. But, it's a drone strike.
Huh.
And the drone's payload explodes in the video, which basically is, kind of they were saying like being kicked back via a cell phone recording of the screen at a Ukrainian drone facility. So they were saying that in this Ukrainian drone facility, they recorded the screen of all this stuff happening with the cell phone.
Oh.
To kind of get it out there.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like, you know, and this is the problem I have with this whole thing about this whole technology. It was supposed to be a super technical kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
You have this advanced technology, you can fly a drone and do all this stuff, but at the end of the day, in order to get the video footage out to show you how powerful or how good you could be with this technology stuff and how, you know, proficient you are and how ready you are, you use a cell phone. You know? Like, hold on, let me hold up my cell phone
instead of
and record it. Instead of like exporting the video file or maybe popping a thumb drive out, you know, like in these movies you see where they slide a thumb drive in, they can copy an entire computer's hard drive in like 12 seconds.
Or releasing the footage from the drones themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe, okay, there's two things that could have happened there. Kind of like the department manager over the smart guys made a decision.
Well, here's what I think. Since we know this technology and all the technology they're getting really is coming from foreign places and outside of their own, like they're not necessarily developing anything themselves, and it's being given to them. At best, they're operators of this gear, not creators of this gear. Hence the Turkish drone and the U.S. supplied military type stuff, and other countries supplying military type stuff. And nobody's supplying Russia. Except for Russia, you know, and Russia has a Cold War stockpile of like, you know, lots and lots of weapons and stuff, right?
Well, maybe the footage was never supposed to go out, and somebody was like, "No, I want to get this out."
Or it's a type of propaganda.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at it, right, the story goes, dude prayed.
Well, that's
and
for
then,
that
and then
story.
God showed up.
Yeah.
And then these guys are like, look what we can do.
Yeah.
You know, so it's sort of being put out there. And of course you've got both sides putting out things back and forth. And I don't really know who's right or who's wrong with this whole thing. I do believe a country should have its own sovereignty for sure.
Yeah.
But but these drones that they're using, they look pretty sweet. You know, and they look like they're, you know, pretty modern. They can kind of do stuff. They don't look as cool as our Predator type drones, but I don't know, man. It's just kind of like a thing. And this thing got 3 million views on Twitter. Have fear, enemies. There will be no peace for you on our earth. And that came from Ukrainian Armed Forces who wrote that in the video's caption. So it almost makes me think that they're just like Florida man in some respects. And just like, just going to do it. There's, you know, like this guy who's the operator is like, you know, you would think.
No, I think the operator and whoever was assigned to the mission to execute this particular drone mission was very smart. But he had like some mid-level manager over his shoulder. What are you doing? That looks really cool. Let me get a video.
I see, you know, having been in the military, you know, they're pretty hardcore about like stuff like that. Or at least our military is, and I don't know if it was supposed to get out. Yeah. Again, you have, you know, farmers towing away tanks with, you know,
and TikTokers
tractors.
Teaching each other how to drive.
People saying, you know, like, or I don't know if this is true or not, where they're saying that you don't have to claim that Russian tank on your taxes in the Ukraine.
Really?
Yeah, it's just crazy, man. It's just kind of like, who are they messing? So, you know, in some ways, I don't know how much of this is all true. It just seems kind of like the Wild West over there to a certain degree, you know?
Oh, that's kind of awesome.
But also, if that be the case, you know, does Russia know what they're actually getting into? You know, I mean, you got people, you know, taking tanks. Like one guy, you know, like they changed their street signs. They're doing all sorts of crazy stuff to make it hard for the Russians.
Are you trying to say Ukraine is Florida?
I said Florida, man.
It's like Ukraine is like northern Florida.
I just think that they have their own spirit. They're going to do what they got to do. I don't think they got any, you know, they're wide open, man. You know, and it's a terrible thing because things are happening over there probably shouldn't be happening. And, you know, I don't know, man. And that's it's hard for me to get a read on this whole situation.
Yeah.
And I think that somebody kicked a hornet's nest.
Yeah.
And everybody's just going to get stung with this whole thing. You know, you've got all this crazy stuff going on, and it's just kind of nutty. But yeah, I was like, UFOs. That's crazy. Now, okay, so if the Ukrainian weapon,
Yeah.
their new weapon, right, is a Turkish drone. And so far, the Russians have not provided any real super high tech ultra weapons, for this sort of conflict. What have they done so far? Is there any instance of them, applying new technology, new unseen military technology in this conflict? And the only thing I came up with is decoy darts.
Decoy darts.
Yep. And what this is according to the Telegraph Co. UK. Decoy darts are how Russia's secret weapons fooled the Ukraine and left citizens, perished in their wake.
Oh.
And what these decoy darts are, it says Moscow's mysterious munitions, behind some of the attacks that have occurred, have never been used or never been seen in combat until now. And if they're talking about, the Russian missiles that were targeting civilian areas. Now they're using this unseen military technology, to make sure that those missiles actually reach their targets. And they're deploying a specially designed decoy system that hasn't been used in previous conflicts. And this is according to U.S. intelligence officials, where it acts as a way. It's supposed to be part of the Moscow's Iskander-M missiles.
Yeah.
Which are supposed to be thought to be launched from mobile launchers, like in other places like Belarus, right?
Yeah.
And they're deploying these decoy systems to fool air defense systems. So they shoot these decoys, and you think there's a whole bunch of stuff coming from one place, and so they shoot at it, but the missiles are actually coming from somewhere else and going somewhere else. Yeah. So they were initially thought to be cluster bombs, these decoy darts that they were finding, but they realized that they're not, because based on their size and shape and stuff that they have going on with them, like the metal fins that aid in stability and sort of stuff like that they were miniature weapons, but they're not.
Oh.
So they're decoys.
Yeah, and it's funny because, somehow...
And they're dart-shaped. That's why they call them decoy darts.
From the last article, there was a different worded headline, so I clicked on it, and it's essentially the same thing you've just shared with the listeners. And this one, though, the way it's worded by the New York Times by way of Yahoo is Russia deploys a mystery munition. And I'm like, so I click on it, but then it's essentially the same thing. So it's like, this is what you've just read breaks down what it is, and this article terrifies me.
Yeah, it's a small decoy, contains electronics that can send out radio signals to make the radar-seeking missiles think that the decoy is actually the main weapon.
Yeah.
It can also fool heat-seeking missiles by creating a different heat signature so that the missiles that are fired can attack this decoy instead of actually attacking the real missile.
Yeah.
Which, is pretty advanced. And if the Ukrainians are using U.S.-based technology, it's entirely possible that maybe the Russians didn't want this to get out or go to the West at all, because then we would know, hey, they got it, and how to tweak our weapons to counteract this weapon.
Yeah.
Now, if that be the case, this is, I wouldn't say that this would be the best technology that the Russians actually have. This is either it is the best, and there's really nothing to worry about, because they would just really be more conventionally warfare based, or this is the lowest.
And that's scary.
And that would be even more scary.
Like I was saying with the whole YouTube slow reveal.
Yeah.
That's horrifying. Yeah.
And it's kind of ingenious in everything I've seen from dealing with, when I was in the military and all that stuff, and we actually went to Russia, is that a lot of the stuff that I seen was more practical based.
Yeah.
It just seemed to be a practical application of whatever they were trying to do, whereas we had more high-tech precision based,
Yeah.
Like they would use a sledgehammer, to drive a railway spike, and we're using pneumatic hammers instead. It's kind of like that, but I don't really know. But when I seen the UFO thing, I'm like, oh man, we got UFOs going on.
Yeah.
And my thought is that so far I'm leaning towards that there is the possibility of UFOs, right? Mm-hmm. But I think more of what we're seeing is just actually military technology that's getting out.
Well, I didn't see any video, and allegedly there's like a photo, but I don't see one. So
no, and the ones that I have seen just look like they're not real.
Yeah, they just look like the clickbait you see.
It looked like they took a frame from a movie or something that's just not related. It's like, oh, okay. And when I see stuff like that, I'm like, okay, I can't I can't put that in the category of like, this is a legitimate thing.
Yeah.
You know, when you steal frame grabs from movies.
Yeah, like Independence Day 2 or something.
Yeah. You know, I can't look at it like, okay. So, and that just makes it, makes you go further down the rabbit hole of like, who do you really believe? What's really going on? When is this going to end? How does this affect everything that's going to be happening? And, long-term effects and stuff like that. So it's a thing, I don't really know, right? And then when you kind of start looking at all the stuff that's happening all at the same time, if you are a theorist, the C word theorist and tinfoil hat, you can start really making your own sort of crazy idea behind all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Including, China is locking down because of the virus. They're locking things down again. Are they locking things down because, there really is such a huge spike? Are they locking things down to reduce gasoline usage, which can reduce gasoline prices? So, because they're supposed to be striking deals and all of this stuff. And that's been the big thing, right? The fear of everything that's been going on with this whole Ukrainian and Russian thing has turned into, it's had the effect of like incredibly high gas prices.
Yeah.
Some of the highest they've ever been. And they say, and I was, looking at some of the news sources out there and say, this is the highest spend since our national average of $2.22 or something like that, or $1.89. And I don't ever remember it being $1.89, from for across the country, but
I mean, yeah, because when the lowest
I feel
we
like
saw
I
it
got a
was
cold or something.
like $1.98, and we turned around to go get it, or
yeah, but I mean, well, they were, it's so, I mean, it's up to like, they're saying the national average is like $3.89 or something like that. I'm like, how? It's been over $4 everywhere we've seen.
Yeah.
Like, where is it that cheap? And we took a cross country trip where the most we paid for gas in places that had, had to get their gas sort of brought in was like $3.69.
Yeah.
So, what? Where?
So, and that's where I think they're slighting the numbers big time, because it's funny how when you want to alarm or alert people, you don't pull all information to come up with an average, but then when you want to calm people down
then you use the real
or
numbers,
temper it, you do pull all information. So if I ask a friend of mine back in New Mexico, hey, what are the prices of gas on all the reservations? Then that number that you gave just makes sense.
Yeah, it's just weird because they're saying that, the national average of gas went down 1 penny to become $4.32 per gallon.
Oh, fantastic.
And then they were saying, okay, and that 1 cent decrease equaled like a 27% decrease in overall gas costs. I am not a math magician, but if you drop the gas 1 penny, how does that equal a 27% decrease? When you talk about the barrel price for gas, the last time I looked at it was like when it spiked, it went up like almost 30-something%. It was like $130 per barrel when it should be hovering between 100 and 105.
Yeah.
So it's like, what these numbers, man, and these stories are just they're just weird. And we are a paranormal and weird news podcast, and it's like, okay, so we got UFOs attacking tanks,
Yeah.
right? Gas prices are out of control. There's sanctions that are happening everywhere. All of a sudden, the fear in gas is, we're going to drop it back down because the fear is becoming less. So we're going to reduce the price of gasoline, hopefully pretty soon. And then you've got, China locking their things down because they're having this huge spike in the virus that's running around. And is it all related?
Well, yeah. And the one thing I wanted to say about that, as far as their total positive cases spikes, listen to those numbers really carefully, and then go look last week at the numbers for just like a single large state like Texas or California or even Washington. Those numbers that they're talking about, this huge spike, aren't that huge when you think of like the numbers we've been getting for the past couple months, especially when the news likes to talk about rural areas like, North Carolina or the South. So that's why I'm not trusting of that news right now. See,
and this is the problem I have as an older 52-year-old person who, I think a lot of what we see is sadly fear driven.
Yeah.
All of it's fear driven. It's designed to keep you off your toes, man. So you don't know which way to pivot. You know? I mean, you got according to these articles, where you got Ukrainian soldiers yelling "God save the Queen" when they fire UK-made missiles at tanks. Is that real? You know what I mean? Are they that crazy? I don't know. I just think that the whole thing needs to come to a resolution pretty quickly, because it's just getting kind of wacky out there.
Yeah.
Because think about it. If you're actively involved in all this, whether you're one side or the other, and you're watching the news and you're trying to discern what's real and what's not real, if things get too wacky, somebody's going to make a terrible mistake. You know what I mean? It's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Oh, my.
So pretty much, this particular podcast episode was like, let's just, what is going on here, right?
Yeah.
Because it was like, okay, so we're having all this stuff happen, and it seemed like the virus was going away. Like, oh, let's talk about something else, because this is not important. Like, wait a minute, coming back. Wait, just when you thought it was, kind of going away, it was, oh, nope.
Okay.
Here it is.
Like, I'm looking at California and the positive cases. They're averaging 3,494 new cases per week on average. That's been taken over the past few weeks.
Yeah.
The entire country of China last week, it spiked to 3,500. That's according to CNBC.
Whole country. So why are they locking everything down if it's that low?
Compared to the state of California. Yes, that is one of our largest states, but still. California is looking at 3,494. China beat them by 5, the entire country.
But they're locking the whole country down.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I understand trying to control spreads and things like that. But, what does locking down an entire country do for you? It reduces fuel costs for sure.
Yeah.
So that if you're in the process of I want to buy fuel, or it seems like it sort of curbs things. The whole thing is just a little off,
Yeah.
And I understand that, Russians and Ukrainians have been sort of, having issues for a long time. So this is not like a new thing. This is something that was even talked about, I think, in 2015. Yeah. President Obama was talking about it.
Oh, I should correct myself.
Well, go ahead. Correct yourself.
So it's 3,500 for the entire nation as far as positive, Mm-hmm. However, there is 1,600 asymptomatic. Asymptomatic, yes.
Asynaptic, that sounds terrible.
Mostly in the northern province of Jilin. So, northern.
And then even when you look at websites like USA Today, and they do fact check sections, right?
Yeah.
Photo of tractor towing jet from Croatia in 2011, not Russian invasion. Yeah, it's really hard to sort of know what's what and what's really going on, and how. And really, you look at all this stuff to figure out how freaked out and scared do you need to be.
Yeah, but that goes back to our whole propaganda thing. Fear drives clicks. Fear drives reads. Yep. Fear drives viewership.
Yeah, and hopefully listens.
Yes. So as long as you continue to terrify people, they're going to tune in again, so that things can either get worse or get better.
Yeah.
And which lasts longer? Things getting better? No. I mean, in fact, there's a lot of evening news. If you still watch actual TV and watch the evening news, a lot of them have stopped doing that warm and fuzzy segment to usually round out the night,
Yeah, no, it's like, let's give you, 30 plus minutes of nightmare fuel so that when you go to bed, you can grind your teeth to nothing or have stress dreams,
The other night we literally went to bed after watching that a big giant neighborhood in South Carolina was on fire. It was and as we end the news tonight, this whole entire community is on fire, and we're like,
that's great.
That's horrible.
Yeah, and to top everything off of this particularly short podcast, I have seasonal allergies.
Yes. It's so bad.
It reminds me of that what is it called?
Metalocalypse.
It was on the Cartoon Network, you know?
Yeah.
When they had some terrible stuff going on and dude was walking around going, I have a summer cold. It's terrible, right? I don't know.
Ooh.
But it kind of is what it is. So we kind of want to talk about it because of the UFOs and secret technology, and it sort of ties into what we've been talking about before with military technology. But, I mean, who knows what's going to happen with this whole thing? I mean, it'd be kind of neat to see if there is some technology out there that's been hiding for so long that becomes sort of public, and we can go, man, that's pretty neat because, this technology has existed and explain a lot of spurious UFO sightings and reports because it actually was technology. So we can separate that from the unexplainable where you're like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
You know? But it might not happen.
But here's the thing. I think it would be a heavy ask to have like Ukrainians and Russians alike to be out there with their cameras trying to capture what may be a UFO or what may be military technology when both sides should be very concerned with their safety.
Well, I mean, if you look at like Desert Storm and Desert Shield and all that stuff and the idea of cell phones, that's where it really sort of started kind of happening, I think, around that time frame. And enough time has passed between here and there to where I think since everyone has a cell phone and video capability and taking images with your cell phone is nothing now compared to how hard it was back then as far as technology constraints, it's going to be pretty easy. Everybody's got a freaking cell phone.
Yeah.
Everybody.
If everybody's...
I mean, they have better internet than we do because they have Starlink.
Yes, because Elon decided to give them...
Well, you say that like the people that are having a conflict.
They deserve it. But
no, they do. But I mean, I'm just saying, though, it is a different time. I mean, even with these cyber attacks that are supposed to be occurring from all over, and I say supposed to be because it's kind of hard to get an idea of what's happening, what's not happening. As quick as Anonymous is taking stuff. It's just nuts, man. It's all sort of like, what is going on here? And then, because we've been sort of kicking around the idea of propaganda and how it can occur on both sides, and mainly I think it's the whole world that's making all of this worse and how they're reporting and what's getting out there. They allegedly created a new postage stamp, the Ukraines, honoring the Snake Island soldiers. They're the ones that were like, basically given the warship, I don't want to say it because then I have to check the little box in the podcast that says, or do you have clean language or is this explicit? I don't want to.
They raised the finger between the index finger and the ring finger.
No, you can say middle finger. You're not gonna, I'm talking about what they actually said because they said it over the radio. It was, how the warship was warning them and they were like, F you warship kind of a thing. Well, they're introducing a stamp or have introduced a stamp that basically shows a single soldier giving the middle finger to a Russian warship.
I like it.
I think it's great.
And it's got like a very Banksy style to it. But I believe you are actually supporting a Ukrainian artist.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
They basically tell the warship to go F themselves, right?
Yeah.
And it basically says the Ukrainian government is introducing a new postage stamp to honor the 13 brave soldiers who were reportedly captured after defending the Snake Island last month at the start of the invasion.
Oh.
No, the original story was that they got wiped out. They were like, F you, and then, that was it. Like, a TV movie end or, a Hollywood blockbuster end to their thing, but that's not the case. They basically, from what I've seen, there was, and this, I don't know if this is propaganda or not, but they were like fed and, just kind of taken prisoner and then sent home. Like, see you guys later, go home. So it kind of makes you wonder, is this thing even really wanted by the people who are actually doing it? Because wars, are fought by people that are created and caused by people at the top, but the people at the bottom are less inclined in a lot of ways to want to carry out that fight.
Exactly.
In other words, wars are started by politicians and then left to the people to kind of carry them out. And maybe some of these people just don't want it.
I wouldn't.
Yeah. Well, yeah, war sucks. I mean, it is, I think you should probably have a good reason. And I don't really know if Russia's reason is good or if Ukrainian, I don't really know what's good here. I don't really know how I've been trying to stay away from most of it, so I'm probably just rambling off. People are like, have been watching news like, you idiot, you don't know what you're talking about. It's just because, look, man, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. But
I mean, I like the idea of, like, you know, these guys, like, you know, go after yourself, you know, that kind of thing. Just like, you know, get them. Because that's just kind of how I roll. Because you're sticking it to the man, right? There's so many different reasons behind this that make it appealing to a lot of people. You're sticking it to your boss. You're sticking it to the man. You're standing up for what you believe. You know, you can make this sort of thing roll out to be whatever you want it to be, to suit whatever you need to suit, to make you feel, you know, good about whatever, you know.
Yeah, and I just really like the art, too. I'm like, I kind of want this stamp.
Just a dude with the middle finger up. You're like, hey, man. Yeah. It's
very, like, coarse, like, graphic novel style.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's cool. So,
you know, if it's true or not, that's pretty neat. But, you know, whatever. At the end of the day, who knows really what's going on with this sort of thing. But, yeah, I thought the stamp thing was pretty good. If they really are doing it. I mean, you know, if they're really making a stamp for that, and they really are saying that you don't have to claim Russian military hardware on your taxes, if that's really a thing, that's just kind of fun. Mm-hmm. You know, which is, I don't know. It seems like in a lot of ways that they're making this less somber. You know what I mean? Like, war is terrible.
It is.
But it just seems like they're taking the edge off of it by doing the stupid stuff like stealing tanks with tractors, middle finger to, you know what I mean? And that's why I don't know if it's real or not.
But then, like, you look.
Like, in a way that, you know.
And that's where,
terrible.
like, history nerds will come in, because I've been joining some history nerd groups on, like, Facebook and other places. And they'll break down major events in history through our modern lens, and those things are just as absurd. Things like Alexander the Great getting in a fight with an entire country over the way one of their writers wrote about his hair.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I'm like, oh,
yeah,
that's what that entire battle was about.
I mean, who knows? You know, and you know, you do have the terrible stories about, you know, attacking civilian structures and things like that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, though, if there is any truth to, you know, hey, where would you want to set up your weapons and things like that if you're trying to defend yourself? You set them up in places where you hope the opposing side doesn't want to attack, because it tugs at their moral heartstrings, their compass.
Yeah.
Like schools and hospitals and stuff like that.
But then we have, like, and I know this sounds stupid, but it was barely a decade ago when the great museums of Egypt got raided. And we're talking by modern people. A lot of those, like, artifacts and what was his name? Zahid Hawass. You know.
Yeah.
And that was just over internal skirmishes. People.
Yeah, but I'm talking about, you know, setting up missile launchers at a hospital.
Yeah.
Because then you hear the rumors that there are, you know, facilities there to create weapons, like biological weapons.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, okay, so when I was in the Navy and we shot missiles at Saddam Hussein, and, you know, the theory was like, oh, well, you know, it wasn't just us, but, you know, a milk factory got bombed. Like, why would you bomb a milk factory?
Yeah.
Why would you, you know, shoot a cruise missile, Tomahawk missile at a milk factory? Well, it wasn't really a milk factory. There were things in the milk factory.
Yeah.
You know, but to the rest of the world, oh, you shot a milk factory. Now the kids can't get their vitamin A and D.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the case. And so when I see stuff like this, I'm like, man, what's really going on here? And it's really hard to get an idea of what's really happening. I mean, I know it's happening, and I just want to know how bad it really is. Like, I mean, how worried do you really need to be? Should we be taking our trucks to gas stations and filling up the back with gasoline? Like, you know, are we back to bagging gas again and you know,
trash
hoarding?
Bags.
Yeah, bagging gas and trash
Coolers.
bags and coolers and hoarding toilet paper. I mean,
Yeah.
do we need to start trying to take aluminum foil and EMP proof our cell phones and, you know, hair dryers and stuff? Because if, you know, EMP happens, you know, do we need to be burying crates of potatoes?
Oh, why would...
You know what I mean? So we can have, you know, food to eat later on. I mean, how worried do we need to be with all this stuff? Or should we just, you know, not go to the grocery store to get ice cream cones. Should we just put that on hold for a while just in case? Just you know what I'm saying? Like, how freaked out do we really need to be?
Well,
because preppers are like, oh, it's coming. And they're prepping, right? They got everything stored. I mean, we always carry and we always have storage because there are things called hurricanes and storms that knock power out.
Yeah.
And, we grew up on the East Coast. So always having, some stuff on hand in case the power goes out for 3 or 4 days, like stocking up on ice cream cones and stuff like that, all the important stuff, right?
Yeah.
We were always ready. But, I mean, if we're in for the long haul, we need to get more stuff. I'm going to need multiple bags of Doritos.
So are you saying that war drives consumerism?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, hurricanes do. And if you go and think about it, and when hurricanes are coming and you're in, like, say, Virginia Beach, you go into 7-Eleven, beer's gone, Doritos are gone,
bread.
Everybody talks about having a party and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I just need to know how prepared we need to be.
What if all of this, everything bad going on for the past few years, is driven by the bread and milk companies? Yes.
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Well, right now there's somebody screaming Big Pharma. You know what I mean? I mean, who really knows? They're like, Illuminati. I told you, man, Illuminati. Everything is controlled by the Illuminati, and they are the major industry players, all of it.
No, it's driven by Sara Lee bread. They're driving.
Nah, it'd be like General Mills, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. But, there is supposed to be the idea that the gas prices are going to come down. Mm-hmm. Because and I like this, the one article I seen looking for a silver lining says, expert thinks that the price of gas may come down. Well, okay, but that's not really a way to put yourself out there. You're not like I'm really taking a risk with making this article. Because, of course it's going to come down. I mean, everything that goes up eventually comes down. Right, and they're saying gas prices rise like a rocket but fall like a feather. Well, of course they do, because, they want to keep getting money.
Yeah.
And they're saying that, hey, there's a possibility that there's going to be some relief at the pumps, but, not much, though, since the price of the gallon of gas average was $4.32. It's going to be coming back down because the barrel of crude is coming down. And then initially, because the whole conflict is happening with Russia and Ukraine, scared the crap out of everybody, and so it really kicked the prices up and all this, fear-based inflationary pricing. And, once the fear kind of backs off a little bit, then prices are going to drop. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay. So the idea with this article is that, hey, it's going to come down. It's going to take a while. And the reason why I put this in here is I just want to say, well, no shit. That's how things go.
This article is about as useful as...
It's from the AAA.
As, like, Puxatawny Phil. It's like 6 more weeks of misery or 6 more weeks of misery.
Yeah. It's either going to get bad or it's going to get better. And this is from AAA. And AAA always gets quoted when it comes to gas because people take trips and they drive.
But then they, like, a lot of this article talks
about... The American Automobile Association.
Talks about Florida, but then the one person they interviewed was like, but I'm from North Carolina, so those are my prices.
Yeah. Relief may be on the way as crude oil prices dropped 8% on Monday. Yay.
Okay.
So maybe in a couple of weeks, we'll know if gas prices are going to drop back down and settle out. I'm going to make a prediction. They're not going to go back to $2.89 or even $1.89 like it was before because everybody was locked down because that they're going to probably stay at $3 because that way the oil companies still get some money and nobody's going to complain about paying $3 a gallon for gas when you're paying $4.27 or in some places like Houston, like $6.89 for a gallon. Nobody's going to complain.
Mm. And that's your prediction.
Well, I mean, hey, and you know what? And this is going to open the door for alternative propulsion technologies to get a deeper foot in the door to be able to put this technology out there for everybody. Like last podcast, we talked about drones using ion engines to fly. They're completely silent, and they fly. And if you look at a drone flying using an ion engine, which effectively at the time, the one that I seen in the drone footage was looked like a pizza box on top of it. It looked like something else. It looked alien. UFO, man.
Okay.
And if two knuckleheads in a garage can figure out how to make a drone fly using ion technology, you know the government already has because they're used the same idea behind ion thrust engines to go into space. Technology was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been a trying time. You know, it's been kind of nutty. It's been volatile with gas prices and weird stuff going on. And, you know, it's hard to know what's good news and what's not news, what's factual and what's not, who's doing the right thing. Because if you look at both sides of every story, you know, there has to be some middle ground somewhere.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people saying the best place to find anything out about this stuff is go to TikTok.
True.
But then again, you're at the mercy of just some knucklehead with a camera, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, who, you know, come on.
I don't know.
And there's not enough good stuff, although, you know, it kind of is with this. You know, I want like happy alien invasions and happy ghosts and stuff like that, at least just for a little while, man. We're coming into spring. Flowers and stuff are supposed to be a rebirth of things.
Yeah.
You know, let's just do that. You know, like I want to see the big brown bear who gives a friendly wave for a piece of bread. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. It's that time. It's not this, like, let's just figure it out so we can just kind of get back to being whatever normal is supposed to be.
Okay.
But you know what's going to happen when all this stuff settles down?
What?
It's going to be, you know, the virus is going to wake back up again. Okay, you got to get your 5th round of whatever.
I don't know about
It's like, just give me a break, man.
Yeah.
Just give me a break.
Just chill.
I don't want to pay $5 a gallon for gas. I mean, you know, I'm fully equipped to do it because that's what we have a van.
Yeah.
We like to travel. I don't want to do it. So if you're looking for ways to save some gas before we wrap up the CreepGeeks podcast, let me give you a couple different things you can do. Verify that your tire inflation is correct for your vehicle. Make the little light go off. Make sure it's properly inflated. You can give yourself 300 to 400% more miles per gallon. It's a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Take all the unnecessary stuff out of your car. Extra weight, right? You're pulling around extra weight. You know, you can get better fuel economy. You can probably get like 80, 90, maybe 110% better gas mileage by taking extra stuff out of your car. Wash your car. Make it faster so it's more aerodynamic. So the dirt won't drag it down. You can probably get 700, 800 miles more per gallon. Give it a tune-up in the air filter. Same thing, probably about 600 or 700% more miles per gallon.
Yeah.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you do all that stuff and you only get like an extra mile or two per gallon. You don't really get like these huge benefits or you don't get the huge gains. But no, you probably should make sure your tires are properly inflated. Change your air filter because, you know, it's a new season. And if you're carrying around having 175 pounds of school books in the back of your car or whatever, you probably want to take those out. It's like carrying around a whole extra person. So, I don't know. Yeah. Maybe I'll do a video on that for my Cheap Geek channel.
Yeah.
But I'm not unloading the van. That's a lot of work going involved. I'd just rather just suck up that extra $1 or $2. Spend 3 hours because you have to do it like this too. Hey, if it takes me 2 hours to unpack the van, right?
Yeah.
How much do I get paid an hour? More than what it's going to cost at the gas tank. I'm very valuable.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, I'm done.
Oh, you're done?
Yeah, I'm done. Do you have anything you want to add, or is there anything we didn't talk about? Did I miss nothing? We don't really have any major events coming up just yet because it's still a little early in the year and we're still trying to figure that out. And I wonder how that's going to affect people because there's lots of conferences and events and things that are paranormal related. How many people are just going to, like, if the gas prices stay where they are, just not commit to even going?
Well, that's our thing. We've actually cut a handful of conferences from our list this year because of that.
Yeah.
I mean, since gas prices are so uncertain, the one we do get to talk about is, you know, allegedly the WNC Bigfoot Festival, a.k.a. the Marion Bigfoot Festival, still happening May 13th and 14th.
Yeah, there's also the Whiteville UFO Festival. It's happening in June.
Yeah.
But, I mean, as far as, like, ones that are, you know, 500, 600, 800 miles away, man, I don't know.
Yeah.
And see, that's what we're looking at. We're in a different spot with that sort of thing. But what if you're somebody who's like, I don't know if I want to drive the 100 miles one way to be a 200-mile round trip when that tank of gas might cost me $100.
Exactly.
You know, and you're trying to bring your kids too. And so, I mean, you know, gas really, and cost of gas and things, it really affects, you know, how people do what they do. Plan
their vacations, plan their time off. Yeah.
I mean, you should totally consolidate your trips if you can, you know. I mean, all of it has a huge impact. It doesn't have an impact on like wealthy, super ultra wealthy people, but it definitely has an impact on the working class for sure.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Imagine being a truck driver where you need to drive 1,300 miles and probably put diesel fuel out of your own pocket until you get reimbursed. It's like you got to pay like 80 gallons. That'd be 80. How much is, what's 5 times? $400.
Yeah.
No, more than that. Hold on. I can't even think. Hold on. It'd be a lot.
Oh. Why did it do that?
I don't know. Kind of nutty.
Well, yeah, I was just doing the math. It took me $63 to fill up my tank the other day.
And you got like 20 gallons.
Yeah, I think so.
No, you didn't even know because you already had gas in it. You have a 22-gallon tank.
Yeah.
And you were like a little under half.
Yeah.
I rounded it up. It's going to cost $100 to fill the van up to get about a 360-mile range.
So I just divided my total. It was like, so I only put like 15 gallons of gas in for $60-something.
Yep.
Gosh.
It's all good.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Got to get all them ice cream sandwiches. That's why you got to get a freezer and get all the ice cream sandwiches and snow cones and stuff.
End the podcast on a good note, unlike the news. And now I'm sitting here like, oh. But if there is anything good, we're going to have new stickers soon in the Etsy shop and online. Our Patreon patrons, they know that they're going to get the first look and hands-on for those. But that's some good news. New stickers.
It seems like things are taking longer to get to us.
Yeah.
But, yep, so we got some new stuff coming. We're working on some stuff, so it's going to be good. So patrons can expect to get their stuff pretty soon.
Yeah.
In the next couple 4 days or whatever it is. Well, I mean, we got to get them first. It's crazy, stuff that we used to develop stuff and get it put out there and get back relatively quickly. It's taking a lot longer now.
Yeah, like my Amazon delivery that should have been here last week.
Yeah.
Just to...
Oh, I know what's wrong with it. Got to put some gas in it. So anyway, there you go. So we have other stuff we're going to talk about in the next podcast. Probably won't be like this new stuff, but, hey, we got other stuff we can talk about too. But if you have any questions, comments, concerns that you'd like to stick it to us, just let us know.
Yep.
Give us that phone number call, or you can leave a message.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Contact at CreepGeeks.com.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So see you later. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Bye.